Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So recently I was in a group Zoom call with some of the members of the Practical Screenwriting course, and we were working through some initial story ideas, and we came across something that I really wanted to share with you all. And that is essentially how to get your story on track once you have some initial ideas and some initial concepts and some scenes, and how to really put it on the right track and get it going with real story momentum, as well as how to actually put philosophical conflict into that story and how you go from the idea phase to actually having a story with momentum. It also has clear philosophical conflict so that you can move into that outline and really get going on your story. So one of the first things you want to do, it's very, very simple to do when you're starting out, is really defining what is the want of your character and what is their goal, right? What do they want? What are they trying to get to, right? Very simple, but a lot of times it's easy to get lost in your concept or get lost in just placing scenes in or these other things, and you forget the importance and the necessity of actually having a clear, focused, external plot want for your protagonist, right? If you don't do this, your character becomes inactive, they become passive, and it becomes very difficult for an audience to engage with your story if your protagonist is passive, right? The action, taking that forward action of your protagonist, is really how the audience can get on board, right? So that's very simple. Obviously, you've heard that before. I've talked about it before. That's an important principle for you to have. The other one now comes into philosophical conflict. So now that we have an idea of where this story is going, we have an idea of what our character wants and where they're headed, we have to understand, why does it matter, right? So now we can talk about what are the stakes of the story. So number one, what does my character want? Second question you need to ask is, what are the stakes? Essentially, what happens if my character doesn't get this want? What happens if my character does get this want, right? And so then there are different levels of the stakes. So there are the external stakes, right? In the plot, what will happen? Will they win the game or lose the game? You know, will they win the soccer game or lose the soccer game? Will they get the job or not get the job? These sorts of things. And then there is the philosophical stakes. And this is really where you can begin to build some of the philosophical conflict into your story if you're struggling with how to actually embed your story with philosophical conflict. You build out philosophical stakes. So if your character has this want, what you do is you say, okay, if they don't achieve this want, what will they believe about the world or about themselves because of that? Or if they do get this want, what will they believe about the world or about themselves, right? So what is on the line for them philosophically? So if they win the soccer game, then they believe that they are a winner, they can do it, it gives them confidence in life, and they continue on past the story with confidence that they can do things that they set their mind to, right? This is a very simple version of this, but philosophically, for that character, it builds in them a belief, right? I am chasing this goal, this want, specifically because I will come out of this with a belief in myself, right? This is a very simple version of it, but it helps to illustrate the idea. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of this in stories that you've seen and talk about how just defining that want and then the stakes can really give you the bedrock of your story and help you build out your philosophical conflict, as well as helping you build out the actual plot of your story. So the first example I want to talk about is Taken, right? Taken is a story you've probably seen. It's a very famous film, and it operates very simply, right? A man's daughter is taken, and he goes out to get her back, right? So his want is very clear. He wants to rescue his daughter, right? So now we can talk about the stakes. So within Taken, there are two very important stakes. So we have the external stakes, of course, where if he fails, his daughter will be sold into slavery, right? Obviously a huge problem, right? So externally, with no philosophical stakes, this is important to him, right? Now we can look at the philosophical side of this. So what we do in the beginning of the story is the story sets up his relationship with his daughter, how he has been absent from her life, and how he has been off, running these missions and working for the government, I believe it is. And because of this, he has been absent in her life. And so now, in this situation, it gives him a moment to prove to her that he does care about her, that he is a good father, and that he can use the skill set that he does have to actually be a good father to her, right? So now, philosophically, it is about what his daughter believes about him, what he believes about himself, and the image of himself that he wants to present to his daughter. And so now we actually have philosophical stakes embedded in this story that has clear external stakes. And now we can be along for the ride, because it's not just about building the external stakes, because we don't really actually care if the team wins or loses a soccer game, or even if the action hero saves his daughter. Not really. What we actually care about is the real dilemma inside that people are going through, represented by characters, right? So we are subconsciously most interested in the philosophical dilemma, and then the external dilemmas are what we watch, even though that isn't actually what truly pulls us in to the story. And so now we can move on to another example, and this is The Big Sick. And so in The Big Sick, the external stakes are based upon our main character's family. So he is a part of a Muslim family, but he does not share their faith. He starts dating a woman that is not Pakistani, and so this causes conflict. So the external stakes are his want is that he wants to be in a relationship with this woman. And then the external stakes are, if he does get this relationship with this woman, it may cost him his family. Then philosophically, it is about him trying to figure out what the best way to live is. Should he go with the wishes of his family so that he can respect what they want, or should he go down the path that he wants to go down because he must be in control of his life and operate upon his value set? So then we have our philosophical stakes. And in this situation, the philosophical stakes, what he wants philosophically, is in direct opposition to the external stakes, which are, if he does what he wants to do philosophically, it will cost him the external stakes, and vice versa. And now we have a real dilemma for our character. So not even without having to look at all these different plot elements, or looking at the structure, or even building out a full philosophical conflict where all the characters fit in, we can see how clearly defining the want and then clearly defining external stakes and philosophical stakes set our story up so that you can then go into that outlining phase and actually start to build out your story. I want to give you one more example here. This example is from Breaking Bad. So in the Breaking Bad pilot, what we see is Walter White trying to figure out what he wants to do. So in this story, he gets a diagnosis, he has cancer, and he does not have very long to live. So what's interesting externally is what he does next matters less in his eyes, because it doesn't matter, he's just going to die. But philosophically, he finally has a moment where he realizes that he's never lived in accordance to what he wants to do, and he's never actually taken control of his life. So now what we realize is externally, he wants to gain control, gain power, gain money. And then philosophically, what he is doing is he is fulfilling this part of himself that he has never actually tried to fulfill before. So he has never actually tried to take control of his life. And so if he doesn't act now, he will have never taken control of his life, and he will finally die. So again, we have a story where on the external side, it's kind of different than the philosophical stakes, because on the external stakes is what he does now doesn't matter that much because he is going to die. But that actually strengthens his philosophical desire, because it gives him the freedom to say, look, I only have 4 years left. I must do this. And if I don't do this, then I will have died, never actually taking control of my own life. So when you understand the negative, when you understand what's at stake, when you understand why the external want is so valuable to your character, now we actually have a story and we have the core engine of your protagonist. So then from that point, now you can start talking about, okay, who are the supporting characters? What do they believe within the philosophical conflict that I've already defined around my protagonist? Then what are the structural beats of the story going to be? How are the different events and plot points in this story going to challenge the characters' want as well as their personal beliefs, their personal philosophy? That is how you can set your story up from the beginning in the idea phase to actually go into an outline and a first draft with clarity and keeping your story on track. I hope that's helpful for you. If you're interested in actually getting your screenplays done, and if you're struggling to finish your screenplays right now, then I want you to click the top link in the description. It'll take you to a video where I show you how to quickly finish your screenplays and get past writer's block and procrastination for the first time.